Introduction. Sarah sits on her sofa, the blue light of her phone screen reflecting in her eyes. It is 10:15 p.m. Her partner, Mark, sent a text 3 hours ago saying he was grabbing a drink with the guys. Since then, silence. Sarah has already checked his location twice. She has scrolled back through their last 10 text exchanges, looking for a sign that he was annoyed when he left. Did she sound too clingy when she asked what time he'd be home? Did he use a period at the end of his last sentence, instead of his usual smiley face? Her heart is racing. Her stomach feels like it's tied in a knot. In her mind, she is already playing out the conversation they will have when he walks through the door. She's practicing her tone, trying to sound cool, but secretly hoping he'll see how much she's hurting and shower her with apologies. To Sarah, this silence isn't just a night out with friends. It's a signal. It's a puzzle she has to solve before the relationship falls apart. 3 miles away, Mia is in a similar spot. Her partner, Leo, is also out late. She sent him a text an hour ago, asking if he wanted her to leave the porch light on. He hasn't replied. Mia looks at her phone, shrugs, and sets it face down on the nightstand. She picks up her book and starts reading. She assumes he's having fun, and probably forgot to check his messages. She feels calm. Her heart rate is steady. She doesn't feel the need to check his Instagram stories, or wonder if he's losing interest. Sarah and Mia are in nearly identical situations, but they are living in 2 different worlds. Sarah is trapped in a doubt spiral. Every silence is a threat. Every minor change in tone is a clue to a crime that hasn't happened yet. Mia is standing on a secure base. She trusts the foundation of her relationship enough to let the wind blow without fearing the whole house will fall down. If you are reading this, you likely feel a lot more like Sarah than Mia. You know what it's like to spend hours deconstructing a 5-word text message. You know the exhaustion of being a relational detective, always on the hunt for proof that you are still loved or signs that the end is near. You aren't doing this because you're crazy or too much. You're doing it because your brain has a very loud, very persistent alarm system that won't stop ringing. The brain's unfinished puzzle. There is a reason your mind won't let go of that awkward comment your partner made at dinner, or the way they pulled their hand away a little too quickly. Scientists call this the Zeigarnik effect. In the 1920s, a psychologist noticed that waiters could remember complex orders perfectly while they were still being prepared, but the moment the bill was paid, the memory vanished. The brain hates an unfinished task. In your relationship, uncertainty feels like an unfinished task. When your partner is quiet, your brain sees a gap in the story. It tries to fill that gap with every worst-case scenario it can find. This isn't just a bad habit. For many, it feels like a fight for survival. In 2010, Dr. Greg Burns at Emory University conducted a study on how the brain processes social rejection. He found that the parts of the brain that light up when we feel physically hurt, like when we stub a toe or burn a finger, are the exact same parts that light up when we feel rejected by someone we love. To your nervous system, a cold text message and a broken arm feel remarkably similar. When you overthink, you aren't just being dramatic. You are trying to protect yourself from pain. You think that if you can just predict the breakup, find the lie, or spot the fading interest early enough, it won't hurt as much when it happens. But the truth is, the protection is what's actually hurting you. It's stealing your sleep, your focus at work, and the very intimacy you're trying so hard to save. The promise of the secure anchor. The goal of this book isn't to turn you into someone who doesn't care about their relationship. The goal is to move you from being a hyper-vigilant detective to becoming a secure anchor. Imagine a relationship where you don't need a pulse check every hour to feel okay. Imagine being able to bring up a difficult topic without worrying that a single disagreement will lead to a breakup. Imagine having emotional autonomy, the ability to have a great day even if your partner is in a bad mood. By the time you finish these chapters, you will have the tools to silence the inner inquisitor that turns every silence into a sign of trouble. Communicate with confidence by using scripts and techniques that bridge gaps instead of building walls. Self-soothe your nervous system so you can stay calm when the doubt spiral starts to spin. Build a bond that feels stable, resilient, and, most importantly, effortless. This approach isn't based on positive thinking or just trying harder to relax. It is built on decades of research into attachment theory, Stoic philosophy, and modern neuroscience. We are going to look at the biological machinery under the hood of your anxiety and learn how to put the brakes on. The lab in Baltimore. To understand why some of us spiral while others stay calm, we have to go back to 1969. In a small windowless room in Baltimore, Maryland, a psychologist named Mary Ainsworth was watching mothers and their infants through a one-way mirror. This was the strange situation experiment. The setup was simple. A mother and her child would play in the room. Then a stranger would enter. A few minutes later, the mother would leave the child alone with the stranger. Finally, the mother would return. Ainsworth noticed that the children reacted in very different ways when their mothers came back. Some children, the secure ones, were upset when mom left, but they were easily comforted when she returned. They quickly went back to playing. They knew their base was safe. But another group of children stayed inconsolable. Even when their mothers picked them up and tried to soothe them, these children would kick, scream, or turn away. They were anxious, ambivalent. They wanted the connection, but they didn't trust it. They were hyper-vigilant, constantly checking to see if mom was going to leave again. Ainsworth's mentor, John Bowlby, realized that these children weren't born difficult. Their behavior was a logical response to how predictable their caregivers were. If a child never knows if their needs will be met, they stay on high alert. As adults, we carry these internal working models into our romantic lives. Overthinking is often just the adult version of that inconsolable child. It is a protest against uncertainty. When you realize that your overthinking is actually a survival mechanism that was formed long ago, you can stop blaming yourself for it. You can start to treat your anxiety with curiosity instead of shame. Meeting Elena Vance. Take a look at Elena Vance. Elena is 34 years old and a senior UI designer in San Francisco. She is brilliant, detail-oriented, and can spot a misaligned pixel from a mile away. Her brain is literally trained to find things that are out of place. Elena lives in a beautiful apartment in the Mission District with her partner of 2 years, Marcus. Marcus is kind, steady, and works in the tech industry just like she does. By all accounts, their relationship is great. But inside Elena's head, there is a constant fog of the spiral. On a Tuesday morning, Elena is sitting in her home office. Marcus left for work 20 minutes ago. Usually, he gives her a quick kiss on the forehead and says, "See you tonight, Elle." But this morning, he was rushing. He just waved from the door and said bye. It has been 20 minutes, and Elena hasn't moved a single pixel on her screen. She is staring at the door. Why didn't he kiss me? Is he annoyed because I left the dishes in the sink? Is he tired of the routine? Is this how it starts? The slow pull away. She opens her phone and looks at their last text. She considers sending a message, "Hey, are we okay?" But she stops herself. She doesn't want to be that girlfriend. Instead, she sits in the fog. Her chest feels tight. She realizes she has spent nearly an hour analyzing a 5-second interaction. Elena's story is the story of relational hypervigilance. She believes that if she stops monitoring Marcus's moods for even a second, she'll miss the signs that he's leaving. She thinks her overthinking is a shield, but it's actually a cage. Throughout this book, we are going to follow Elena as she learns to unlock that cage and step out into the clear air of a secure bond. The map to the quiet mind. The journey ahead is broken down into clear, manageable steps. We won't just talk about why you overthink, we will focus on how to stop. We will start by decoding the anxiety engine. You'll learn how your brain's biological alarm system gets stuck in the on position, and how to use the 5-second pause to stop a spiral before it takes over. We'll look at the work of John Bowlby and the stoic wisdom of Seneca to understand why we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. Then, we will move into the toolkit for regulation. This is where you'll learn the 6 pillars of emotional regulation. These are practical physical ways to calm your heart rate and clear the mental fog when you feel triggered. We'll look at how Eleanor Roosevelt transformed her own deep insecurities into a model of independent strength, and how you can do the same. Next, we'll tackle the art of secure communication. You'll learn how to share your feelings without making your partner feel responsible for your anxiety. We'll explore the Lindbergh principle, learning how to view silence not as a sign of a crash, but as a sign of your partner flying their own plane. Finally, we will focus on building the relationship fortress. This is about creating anti-fragile intimacy, a bond that actually gets stronger when things get tough. We'll look at daily rituals that act like gold lacquer, sealing the cracks of doubt and making your connection feel effortless and beautiful. A signal through the fog. In 1977, NASA launched the Voyager spacecraft. On board was a golden record containing the sounds of Earth. It was a message to the unknown, a way of saying, "This is who we are." One of the people who helped create that record was a woman named Anne Druyan. While the team was recording her brainwaves to include on the disc, she had just fallen in love with the project's leader, Carl Sagan. As the sensors tracked her mind, she sat and thought about the feeling of being in love. That signal, the physical record of human connection and security, is now billions of miles away, traveling through the vast silent dark of deep space. Your relationship can be that signal. It doesn't have to be a source of noise, static, and fear. It can be the one thing that remains true and steady, even when the rest of the world feels chaotic. You have spent enough time as a detective, hunting for clues of disaster. It is time to retire the magnifying glass. It is time to stop watching the horizon for storms, and start building the anchor that will keep you steady through any weather. The path to a quiet mind and a secure heart starts right here. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Decoding the Anxiety Engine. Professor Aris used to keep a small white plastic box on his desk during every lecture. It was an old smoke detector he had pulled out of his kitchen ceiling years ago. He didn't keep it there for safety. He kept it there because it was broken in a very specific way. Most smoke detectors only go off when there is a real fire. This one was different. It was so sensitive that it would scream if you made toast. It would scream if the shower got too steamy. Once, it even started wailing because the afternoon sun hit it through the window and warmed it up just a few degrees. He called it the bad bodyguard. A good bodyguard protects you from real danger. A bad bodyguard makes your life miserable by treating everything like a threat. Professor Aris would tap the plastic box and tell us that our brains were exactly like that broken device. We think our anxiety is a sign that something is wrong with our relationship, but usually it's just the smoke detector going off because we're making toast. He taught us that the human mind has a built-in anxiety engine. It's a piece of ancient machinery designed to keep us close to the people we love. When it works, it creates a doubt spiral that can make even a happy relationship feel like a house on fire. Understanding how this engine was built is the first step toward finally turning off the alarm. The London Clinic and the Affectionless Boys. In 1944, a man named John Bowlby was walking the halls of a clinic in London. The world outside was loud and dangerous. World War II was still raging, and the city was filled with the sounds of sirens and planes. Inside the clinic, Bowlby was trying to solve a different kind of mystery. He was studying 44 children who had been caught stealing. At the time, most doctors thought these children were just bad. They thought some people were simply born without a conscience. But Bowlby noticed something that everyone else had missed. As he sat with these young boys listening to their stories, he found a pattern that sent chills down his spine. Nearly all the boys who seemed the most cold or heartless had one thing in common: they had been separated from their mothers for a long time when they were very small. Some had been in the hospital for months. Others had been sent away to live with strangers during the bombings. Bowlby realized that these boys weren't born bad. They were boys whose anxiety engines had been pushed to the breaking point. When a child is separated from their caregiver, a biological alarm goes off. It is a scream for connection. If that scream isn't answered for a long time, the engine eventually burns out or stays stuck in the on position forever. He called this the protest phase. When we feel a threat to our bond with someone, we protest. We cry, we cling, or we get angry. It is a survival skill. In the wild, a baby monkey that stays close to its mother lives. A baby monkey that wanders off or gets ignored gets eaten. This discovery changed everything. It meant that the panic you feel when your partner doesn't text back isn't crazy. It is a biological survival response. Your brain isn't trying to ruin your Friday night. It's trying to make sure you don't get left behind in the woods. Bowlby showed us that we are wired for proximity. We need to know where our person is, what they are thinking, and if they still want us around. When that connection feels thin, the anxiety engine starts to hum. For some of us, that hum never really stops. The 3 parts of the anxiety engine. To understand why your mind won't stop spinning, you have to look at the 3 main parts of the anxiety engine. This framework explains how a tiny spark of doubt turns into a full-blown mental crisis. The input, the trigger. This is the moment something changes. It might be a change in your partner's tone of voice. It might be a text message that ends with a period instead of a smiley face. It might just be a long silence during dinner. To most people, these are small things. But to the anxiety engine, these are iceberg warnings. The processing, the doubt spiral. Once the engine receives the trigger, it starts to look for more evidence. This is where the detective mode kicks in. Your brain begins to replay every conversation from the last 3 days. It looks for clues. It asks, did I say something wrong, or are they bored of me? This stage creates the fog of the spiral. You can no longer see the reality of your relationship because the fog of your own thoughts is too thick. The output, the protest. This is the action you take to try and stop the pain. You might send a, "Are we okay?" text. You might pick a fight just to get them to talk to you. You might check out emotionally so they can't hurt you first. This is the alarm on the smoke detector finally going off. The problem is that the output often makes the relationship worse, which then provides more input for the engine to process. It's a loop that feeds itself. The engine gets hotter and louder until you can't think about anything else. You lose sleep. You can't focus at work. You are a prisoner to the machine in your head. The guard dog in your brain. Inside your head, tucked behind your ears, is a tiny almond-shaped part of the brain called the amygdala. This is the home of the anxiety engine. Its only job is to scan the world for threats. The amygdala is like a very loyal, but very stupid guard dog. It doesn't speak English. It doesn't understand that your partner is just tired from a long day at work. It only understands safety and danger. When your partner pulls away to have some me time, your amygdala doesn't see a healthy adult needing a break. It sees a withdrawal of connection. To a guard dog, a withdrawal of connection feels exactly like being abandoned in the middle of a dark forest. This is why your body reacts so strongly when you overthink. Your heart starts to race. Your stomach feels tight. Your breath gets shallow. This is called relational hijacking. Your amygdala has taken over the steering wheel of your brain. It has pushed the logical, smart part of your brain, the part that knows Marcus loves you, into the trunk. The guard dog is now driving the car, and it is driving straight toward a cliff of panic. This biological alarm is incredibly fast. It happens in less than a second. By the time you realize you are overthinking, your body is already flooded with stress chemicals. You aren't just thinking about a problem, your whole body is experiencing a threat. This is why it is so hard to just relax. You can't tell a guard dog to relax when it thinks there is a burglar at the door. You have to show it that the burglar is actually just the wind, the still face, and the need for a mirror. In 1975, Dr. Edward Tronick showed the world just how deep this need for connection goes. He conducted a study called the still face experiment. He had a mother sit across from her baby and play with the child. They laughed, they pointed, and they mirrored each other's expressions. The baby was happy and secure. But then, the mother was told to turn her head away, and when she looked back, to keep her face completely still. No smiling. No frowning. No talking. Just a blank, still face. The baby's reaction was heartbreaking. At first, the baby tried to get the mother's attention. It pointed, it cooed, it smiled. When that didn't work, the baby began to panic. It screeched, it kicked its legs, and eventually it turned away and started to cry in total despair. The baby's anxiety engine had gone from 0 to 100 in less than 2 minutes. We never really grow out of this. When you look at your partner and you see a still face, or you get a still text message, the infant part of your brain screams. You are looking for a mirror. You are looking for a sign that says, I see you, I hear you, and you are safe with me. When the mirror goes dark, the doubt spiral begins. Most overthinkers are people whose mirrors went dark a few too many times in the past. Maybe it was a parent who was distracted. Maybe it was an ex who was hot and cold. Whatever the reason, your engine learned that silence is dangerous. It learned that a still face means the end of the world. Elena and the period at the end of the world. Elena Vance sat in a bright, noisy coffee shop in the Mission District of San Francisco. The smell of roasted beans was everywhere, and the sound of milk steaming usually calmed her down. But today, she didn't even taste her latte. She was staring at her phone screen like it was a ticking bomb. She had texted Marcus 3 hours ago, "Hey. Hope your day's going well. Want to grab tacos later?" Marcus had replied 10 minutes ago, "Can't today. Working late." To anyone else, it was a normal text. But to Elena, it was a disaster. She looked at the period at the end of the word, late. Marcus usually used exclamation points. He usually said, "Sorry, can't today." He usually suggested, "Another night." "He's mad," Elena whispered to her friend Sarah, who was sitting across from her. "He's not mad, Elena," Sarah said, not looking up from her laptop. "He's a lawyer. He's literally working." "But the period, Sarah? It's so final. It feels cold. And he didn't say, 'Love you' or 'See you tomorrow.' He's pulling away. I can feel it. I think the Austin trip changed something. He was so quiet when he got back." Elena's heart was pounding. She felt a tightness in her chest, a familiar haze she called the fog of the spiral. She started to scroll back through their messages from the last week. She was looking for the exact moment the shift happened. "Is it Marcus pulling away?" Sarah asked, finally closing her laptop and looking Elena in the eye. "Or is it your anxiety engine looking for fuel?" Elena paused. She didn't like the question. It felt like Sarah was saying it was all in her head. But as she sat there, she realized she had spent the last hour and a half analyzing a 4-word text message. She hadn't finished her design mock-up for work. She hadn't even noticed the sun had come out. She was a senior UI designer. Her whole job was about noticing small details, pixels, colors, and spacing. But in her relationship, that skill had become a curse. She was using her detail-oriented brain to build a case against her own happiness. "I feel like if I stop watching him for 1 second, Elena said, her voice shaking, "I'll miss the sign that he's leaving. And then the shock will kill me." This is the core belief of the overthinker: hypervigilance is a shield. Elena believed that her anxiety was keeping her safe. She thought that if she could just solve the mystery of the period at the end of Marcus's text, she would finally be able to relax. But the truth was the opposite. The more she analyzed, the more the engine heated up. The more she looked for proof of love, the less she felt it. The predictive brain. Why does our mind do this to us? Why can't we just accept that a period is just a period? It's because the human brain is a prediction machine. Our brains hate uncertainty more than almost anything else. To your brain, a bad certainty is better than a neutral uncertainty. If your brain decides Marcus is mad at me, it at least has a plan. It can apologize, it can cry, or it can get defensive. But if your brain has to accept, I don't know why he used a period, it has nothing to do. It feels helpless. To avoid that feeling of helplessness, the anxiety engine creates a story. It fills in the blanks. It takes a tiny piece of data, a short text, and builds a whole mountain of drama out of it. We overthink because we are trying to predict the future. We are trying to make sure we aren't surprised by pain. We think that if we imagine the breakup 1,000 times in our heads, it won't hurt as much if it actually happens. But as the Roman philosopher Seneca once said, we suffer more in our imagination than we do in reality. Elena was suffering the pain of a breakup that wasn't even happening. She was mourning a relationship that was actually perfectly fine, all because her prediction machine was trying to protect her from a ghost. Tuning the engine. If you have an anxiety engine that is running too hot, the answer isn't to try and break the engine. You can't. It's part of your biology. It's the same system that makes you jump when you hear a loud noise or run when you see a snake. The goal is to tune the engine. Tuning the engine starts with recognition. It starts with the moment you feel the fog of the spiral rolling in. Instead of saying, Marcus is leaving me, you learn to say, my engine is revving. When you label the feeling as a biological process rather than a relational truth, the power of the spiral begins to fade. You move from being inside the machine to being the person watching the machine. This isn't easy. It feels like trying to ignore a smoke detector that is screaming in your ear. But the more you practice, the more you realize that the alarm doesn't always mean there is a fire. Sometimes it just means you're making toast. Elena took a deep breath. She looked at her phone again. She saw the period. She felt the urge to text Marcus back and ask, "Are you okay? You seem short." But then she remembered Professor Aris and his broken plastic box. She imagined her amygdala as a small, tired guard dog that had been barking all day at nothing. "He's just working," she whispered to herself. She didn't quite believe it yet. Her heart was still beating a little too fast. But for the first time in an hour, she put the phone face down on the table. She didn't send the text. She didn't scroll through old messages. She just sat in the noise of the coffee shop and let the engine hum without giving it any more fuel. The fog didn't disappear instantly. It rarely does. But it stopped getting thicker. And in the world of an overthinker, that is the first great victory. We are all carrying around ancient machinery in a modern world. Our brains were built for a time when being left behind meant death. Now we live in a world of last seen statuses and read receipts. Our poor anxiety engines are overwhelmed. They are screaming at shadows and crying over punctuation. But you are not your engine. You are the pilot. And once you understand how the machine works, you can finally start to take back the controls. The noise in your head is just that, noise. It is a sign that you have a heart that wants to stay connected. It is a sign that you value your bond. Now it is time to teach that heart that it is safe to be still. Chapter 2: Why does certainty always slip through our fingers? In a bright laboratory at University College London, a group of researchers sat volunteers in front of a computer screen for a game that felt more like a test of nerves than a pastime. The rules were simple but stressful. Each player had to flip over virtual rocks shown on the screen. Under some rocks, there was nothing. Under others, there was a snake. If a player uncovered a snake, they received a small, painful electric shock to the back of their hand. The scientists, led by Dr. Archie de Burker, weren't just looking at who could find the most snakes. They were measuring stress levels. They tracked how much the players' pupils dilated and how much they sweated. The researchers changed the odds as the game went on. In one round, the players knew for certain there was a snake under a specific rock. In another round, they knew for certain the rock was safe. But the most important round was the maybe round. In this version, the players were told there was